Hello everyone, Alien Volt here, and I am playing Wildstar. And right now I am on my Arwen. And Arwens are described as scrappy, energetic, and passionate. They're tree huggers, is what it says. And my Arwen here is an Esper. And Espers are masters of illusion, attacking their enemies with powerful psychic weapons and projecting inspiring visions to heal their friends and allies. Combat with an Esper is a deadly, phantasmal dance that torments enemies with their darkest fears before punishing them or pushing them over the edge of madness. From what I've seen so far playing her, she's basically like a mage. Apparently I'll get some healing spells, or you can spec that way later on. I haven't really looked at the specking abilities very much. But so far she seems more like a mage than anything new or unusual for the class. With abilities that are similar to Frost Novas and other burst damage that she does at ranged. The path that I actually selected for her, which is basically kind of like side missions that run along with your main storyline through the leveling zones, was Settler. And I actually did it at random. It's just what it happened to give me. I was trying to try out different ones, and so I didn't actually select one that I wanted to do. I just selected, whatever one that it came with, so that way I could try something new that I hadn't already tried. And basically what the Settlers' missions are basically to tame the wilds of the planet Nexus, collecting resources and constructing beneficial improvements for the community. And the choices you get are basically soldier, settler, scientist, and explorer. And the only one I haven't tried out yet at this point is scientist. I've actually done settler, soldier, and explorer. And they're all different, which is cool. I mean, it gives you something different to play if you're going to play multiple classes like I usually do, so you don't have to repeat the same quest over and over again. Another good thing that they did with this was they put people in with basically different questing hubs for starting out too. Not all the factions, but similar to what World of Warcraft did. They separated them, like the gnomes and the dwarves have different quest hubs to start off with, but they're both in Dunmoral area. Well, this is kind of the same way. They've put different races together and different starting areas, and which definitely helps out when you're trying to level multiple characters. This game reminds me a lot of WoW, not only in the movement of the characters, but the graphics mainly, the coloring. I know the environment's different. I mean, this is more of a space fantasy type of game, where WoW is more of a traditional, medieval type fantasy. But the color patterns of like the environment and the characters are very similar. Now, when I made the character customization videos that I did recently, I actually didn't think the hair was going to move on the characters like it does right now, but it actually moves pretty decently. It looked like when you designed the characters there wasn't much movement to it. It looked pretty solid, which was one of the things that I actually disliked about Elder Scrolls Online. The fact that they made the hair very rigid, didn't put very many skeletons in it to actually make it movable. As the character moves their head or is riding, a horse or something, it doesn't really move a lot. Well, this moves quite a bit, so they did a good job with that. I'm really impressed. Also, if you haven't seen the customization videos, they actually give you a ton of options with these characters, which is really nice. The combat is what really separates this game from other MMOs. It's similar to Elder Scrolls Online, but very animated like WoW is, even more so. You actually see your damage indicators where the enemies are going to be damaged as long as they're in that area, where normally you only see it when the enemies are actually damaging you, which is kind of a nice change. At first I didn't really know how I was going to feel about that, but the more I played it, the more I actually liked it. Now this combat system that they've developed here is supposed to be a big improvement over other games. I do like it. It feels very familiar. It feels very WoW-like in a sense, but it also has things like dodging in every direction, and all characters get it, which is basically kind of a roll out of the way. If you've ever played Defiance, it's basically the same type of dodging movement as Defiance. Elder Scrolls Online has it as well. I can see people later on in this game binding that to other moves, or even just a directional bind, and really doing amazing things with these characters in PvP. I haven't actually tried to bind any keys yet in this game, but I'm sure you'll be able to. If not in the game, then with mouse programs. The game plays very well. The biggest problem I've had so far is I've played probably about 8 hours into the beta this weekend, and I did a lot of recording the first day just to find out that my DX Troy video recording software did not record any sound, and the video quality was extremely low frames per second and lagged the entire time I tried to play it back with no sound. I couldn't get any sound out of it all. There was no sound files attached, which was very disappointing because normally that's a very good program to record with. Of course, NVIDIA Shadowplay is not showing up either, so I couldn't record with that, which is ideal when I can record with it because I don't have to actually run any other programs in the background. It just outside of the NVIDIA experience.
Good work. Of course, there is more to do.
So I was left with recording with Fraps, which is what I'm actually playing these videos on. But Fraps lowers your frames per second normally when you're playing, and it's quite noticeable. As soon as you hit the record key, your frames usually drop in half, if not more, for some games. But it actually wasn't bad for this game. It kept my frames up pretty decently. However, on the recording part, it actually recorded where my frames dropped down a lot on the recordings, and I don't know why. At some points there's no explanation. I'm not even doing anything, and all of a sudden my frames per second on the recording will drop down to like 7 or 5, which are the little numbers at the top hand right of the screen, but yet my gameplay didn't suffer at all. My actual gameplay was smooth. So I'm sure it's just because the game's still in beta. They've still got some bugs to work out, still have some things to smooth out and optimize. And right now, obviously, it's having some problems. I can't even get out of any 3 of my recording programs, none of them are working correctly or very effectively on this game right now, which was kind of unfortunate. I could have tried turning down the graphics quite a bit and seeing if that freed up processor power, but I have a pretty good computer, and my processor's running standard at 3.4 gigahertz, which should very easily run this game. But I have it on the highest settings. In fact, I even went down and manually increased one of the settings that on the highest setting overall. It actually kept one area, which was like small particle detail or small object detail. It actually had it on low even with everything maxed out. So I went ahead and I turned that up all the way to high, which was maxing it out as well. I don't think it's recommended for the beta, which is why it wasn't actually moved up when you actually change the settings. But I manually did it anyways because my frames per second were 90 plus when I was playing, and then then I had these problems with the recording. So I could have probably tried turning those down and seeing if that would have helped improve anything. But at the time that I was actually doing all this, I just felt like it was the video recording programs, but the game was so new and it was just having some conflicts.
Double kill.
And I didn't really have a lot of time to troubleshoot. I had already dumped basically 1 day of video recording completely out. I had to delete it all because it was useless. So then I played the second day and I tested it out with Fraps and it seemed to work. And so then I started recording and I started replaying other characters, which is that Arwen is the first one you've seen in this video, was actually my third character that I played. And I started playing actually with her, and that's where I started getting my footage because it seemed to work. Little did I know that a lot of that footage also had really droppy and choppy frame rates in the recording process. But at least I got usable footage for the most part. You'll see some of this will drop down pretty low and then all of a sudden it'll spike right back up to like 60. And it's ridiculous, but it's the best I could do. Now to play this, you're either going to push buttons or you're going to click buttons, just like WoW or Rift or, you know, Star Wars: The Old Republic. Same type of setups. Very different from Elder Scrolls Online, which is basically you use your mouse to attack and block and interrupt, and then all of your special abilities are all based off your number keys. You don't have any option to click anything in game. This is more traditional MMO style. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, when I compare this game to World of Warcraft, I'm not downing it at all. In fact, it should be more of a compliment because WoW has been the most successful MMO RPG on the market for the last 10 years. They've managed to keep subscriptions going, and even at 8 million subscribers, at $15 a month, that's quite a bit of income. You're looking at $120 million a month that basically they're making off of WoW. I was actually pretty shocked since several games recently in the past few years have failed trying to do a monthly subscription, that they actually came out with a similar business model. So you can buy the game at $59.99 or the digital deluxe edition at $74.99 and then pay a monthly subscription at $15 a month. Now, one thing they did add in was something very similar to Rift, and that you can buy with real cash, like a monthly subscription, and then sell it on like an auction house to other players in game for game gold. And they've actually promoted this and doing it with their business model, which is, you know, a good thing to do. People are going to try to do it anyways. I mean, they do it in WoW even though technically they're not supposed to. But Rift allows it to be done. I mean, they actually sell the thing on their market so that way it can be put on the auction house to be sold. And this game is going to do exactly the same thing. So you can either do a monthly subscription or you can work and play a lot for gold and then buy the monthly subscription time card from other players in game for your in-game currency. So it's nice that they're doing that. They're actually giving people an opportunity to pay for the game actually by playing it. I was personally hoping this was going to be a free-to-play, and I planned on playing it. I don't know that I'll be playing it until it goes free-to-play, if it does. And if it doesn't go free-to-play and it's just subscription-based and it ends up making it, perhaps I'll try it later on, but I don't think I'll be signing up for another subscription since I currently subscribe to several games at the moment. And I don't know how much time I'm actually going to put into this. I'm going to run around right now on my warrior, and he's a Granok, and he's actually a lot of fun to play. I made him pretty large, but they're huge, giant characters anyways. But he does a lot of damage as a warrior. I really like playing the warrior class, which normally I don't really play much of. I usually go for like a rogue type class, which that was my first character in this game. I actually made a rogue. Actually they call it a stalker, but it's basically the same thing. So my warrior here, he's an explorer, so my missions are basically to explore different areas and usually bring in like a satellite, sometimes to rescue someone stuck somewhere, but it's usually all scientific type missions, which are kind of cool. I should have probably went the soldier route on him just because he's a warrior and it fit a little bit better, but I wanted to explore when I made him. He was actually second character I made, but primarily the first one I played up to level 7. Now the combat in this game actually plays very similar to WoW in the respect of, you know, the attacks and some of the movement, but they don't seem to spin around quite as quickly as the characters do in WoW. And I don't know what this stuff is right here I'm running through. It's like some type of ground cover or something. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but it's definitely strange looking. You run through it rather than on top of it, unless it's something graphically that's just not going very well with my NVIDIA and SLI. I don't know if other people see that or not, actually. I never even thought to ask, but to me it just kind of, it's supposed to be some type of ground cover, but I bet it might be an actual graphical error, something that should have been on the ground. But you sink through it and run through it, and I hope it's not part of the game, because it's something I definitely don't find very attractive or immersive at all. It seems very weird to kind of run through that and not have it move around and stuff while you're actually running through it. But the warrior is very similar. His moves are very similar to any other warrior class you play in other games. He's got a buff that gives him instant, kind of a rage-like ability that you use for your attacks. You hit to build up rage attacks, and then use like specialty moves with that rage. So very similar. Pretty standard class. Now this is my rogue. He's actually a stalker. I went the soldier route on him because it just seemed like a cool thing to try out. He has his missions, his side missions will all be basically fending off large groups of people, attackers. Which is why I probably should have did that on my warrior, because he'll take a little bit more damage than this guy will. But so far I really haven't had a problem with it. They're usually pretty decently easy to beat so far. But I am like a level 7 on this guy. So no problem so far. Everything's been pretty easy. I just leveled up to level 8. But my first video with the Arwen, that was the starting area. It's kind of more of like a tutorial area, teaching you how to engage in combat, how to follow the quest. The second area that I was on my Granok was basically the first area outside of the starting area, and now I'm in the third area right now on this guy as a level 7 and 8 already, and I could have probably got here as a level 6, but I ended up killing a lot of mobs and trying to do every single quest I could possibly find, in order to level up faster. But the only problem I'm finding with this guy right now is that I'm running into mobs at this point that are more like elites and like maybe I don't know elites and then raid bosses. There's one in this area that's actually says right on it, there's a little number that says 20 next to it, and when you scroll over the number, when you're clicked on the profile picture, it actually says recommended 20 people to beat the mob. So I'm assuming that's kind of like a world boss or like a raid world boss, you know, that's in an open world environment. Now, one thing that's cool with this, even though this game looks so much like WoW, and in fact it has waves like by the ocean that looks exactly like the waves that are in WoW in Mists of Pandaria. But one thing this game where it sets apart is that the physics. Like for this river right now, you actually get a current. So if you're running downstream, you move faster or swim faster in some areas. And if you're moving upstream, you get the resistance from the water, which is very cool. This is one of the few games I've ever played to experience that. So thumbs up for that. Great job on doing something like that with the environment. It's definitely a cool feature. So if you've played WoW and Rift and other games like that, even maybe Final Fantasy, the combat's not going to be very difficult for you to pick up on. But this game is meant for you to dodge a lot. So you're going to have to get used to that. You also have to be facing the opponent, but that's similar to most of the games. I mean, especially if you're melee. If you're not facing the target, you're going to miss. As you can tell by the environment, if you look at this, you know, this mountain here with the, or a tree, I think it's actually supposed to be a large tree. You know, the blockiness of it, the coloring of it is very similar to that of WoW. So they've definitely got a very challenging market to conquer. I mean, you either like this style of art or you don't. See, right now I'm kind of sprinting upstream, but when you stop, you kind of stop. You stop moving. You don't actually go backwards unless you stop and try to stand up, and the water will actually push you backwards, which is really cool. See, that's the water pushing me backwards. I didn't even have to get out of the red, it just shoved me back. But as I was saying, I mean, they've got definitely a pretty big goal of trying to maintain a market, you know, a subscription base in this market, where most of the people that play this style of game with this art are already playing WoW. But the combat system is very unique in this game compared to WoW, in the sense that it's more challenging. So they might actually bring back some of those people that were disappointed with WoW. Now see, this mob that I'm fighting right here is actually kind of like not quite an elite, I don't think. Maybe it is, but it's got higher armor buffs, which is how it separates over here. It started off with the little number next to it, shows that it has more armor, and until you defeat that armor, you can't even do damage to it. So you really have to try to, you know, roll out and evade a lot of damage, which isn't always easy to do. This bigger guy right here that I'm fighting actually has stuns as well, basically like a CC, you know, a daze. But they get more challenging, and there's quite a few of them in this zone, which really surprised me. I had to really start watching out because I thought I was going to attack a regular mob and ended up attacking these guys. And unlike, you know, WoW or Rift, they don't have any special circle around them, you know, to really identify. You just have to kind of really try to pay attention to their hit points. But that's going to be it for this video. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked it. I like this game. It has a lot of positives to it. Still kind of glitchy for me, especially in the recording and graphics area. But other than that, it played very well. It played very fluid. Definitely played a lot better than my recording ended up showing. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.